They say there's a forest in the eastern hills of Leisure where time stands still, a place where people don't go near or even speak of after dark. History has it that there was a time when three ancient gods fell in love with a beautiful mortal woman called Nneka. Her beauty was said to have surpassed even the most beautiful goddess of the heavens, that people traveled far and wide just to get a glimpse of her radiance. Each of the three gods sought to win her affection, which resulted in a riot amongst them, much to the dismay of their wives. The goddesses, filled with envy and spite, came together and devised a plan to deal with the Nneka. Being sought after by the richest and most powerful men, who even included gods, Nneka slowly developed a sense of pride. She became arrogant, often belittling others as less. She paid no regard to anyone and lacked respect for authority. The only thing she valued the most in the world was her reflection. Every morning, Nneka would go to a shimmering river, glowing with magical colors and reflections, hidden deep within the forest, to take a look at her beauty, praising and adoring herself for hours, after which she would fetch some of it in her small water pot, as she believed that the water from the river had mystical powers that added to her beauty. One of those mornings, Nneka had done her normal routine and was about to leave the lake when she crossed paths with an elderly man. He said to her, "My child, could you please spare me some water to drink? I am thirsty." She looked at him in disgust and began to mock him. "Old man, is your old age affecting your sight that you cannot see a river in front of you? Go ahead and get water by yourself." She stormed off before the old man could say another word. Moments later, she had another encounter. This time, it was a little girl. The little girl asked in a sulky voice, "Auntie, please, can you help me find my way home? I am lost and I cannot find my mother." "This child, how is it my fault that you and your mother are so careless and irresponsible? If she loves you enough, then let her come and find you." Annoyed, Nneka said as she walked off without even glancing at the child. She had approached the crossroads, one of which led to her village, when she saw a middle-aged woman sitting by a corner begging for alms. The woman called out to her, beckoning for spare change, when Nneka shouted at her angrily, "What is it? Am I the cause of your poverty? Let me be." No sooner had she uttered those words, the ground beneath her feet began to shake, and the trees around the forest roared. All of a sudden, lightning struck around her, and in a flash, three illuminating figures appeared. They were the three goddesses. Their voices echoed in a loud tone as they spoke in unison. "Nneka, your beauty beguiles you, and your heart is as black as night. You have no love in your heart and lack compassion for others. On this day, we curse you for eternity. Your face shall become as dark as your heart, and you shall forever wander as a ghostly figure in this forest. Only a heart pure enough to sacrifice their desires for the sake of yours can break the curse." And just like that, Nneka faded into legend, never seen, never heard from again. Decades passed, and the story of Nneka slowly faded from the lips of the villagers in that community. Only a few still remembered, and even then, only in fragments. But one thing remained unchanged. No one dared to enter that forest out of fear that they too might never return. There was a young man who lived in that village. His name was Ikenna. He was a skilled hunter, humble, kind, and loved by all, both young and old. Although he didn't have much, He was well known for his acts of giving. In one of those seasons, there was famine in the land. Hunger and starvation filled the air like smoke, thick, heavy, and impossible to ignore. The king summoned the most powerful chief priests from across the land, desperate for a solution to the looming disaster. After days of communing with the gods, the priests finally returned with a message for the people. The gods have spoken. In the heart where silence grows lies a name that no one knows. Not of gold, nor blade, nor bone, but something taken, now alone. The path is dark, the price is steep, where shadows whisper and spirits sleep. One must walk where others flee to find the lost and set it free. This is the riddle the gods have given us. It speaks of a brave soul, one willing to risk everything to walk the path none dare take. When he embarks on the journey, all will be revealed. Only then can our salvation be found. The king, his voice heavy with dread, asked what path the riddle spoke of. The priests looked at one another, then answered in unison. The path is the forest no one dares speak of. Fear spread like wildfire, and whispers filled the air as people wondered what man would be selfless and brave enough to venture into the forest. Amidst the chaos, Ikenna stepped forward, knelt before the king, and declared, "If my king permits, I am willing to go." The king's voice was grave as it echoed through the palace courtyard. "Son of the soil, do you truly understand the path you choose? The journey may cost you your life. You may never return." The air grew still. The murmuring crowd fell silent. Ikenna lowered his head, then spoke softly but steadily. "I understand, my king, but what is one life compared to the suffering of many? I cannot bear to watch our children go to sleep hungry or see our mothers weep in silence. If walking that path can bring back even a glimmer of hope, then I will go. My only wish is to see this village alive again, to hear the drums, the laughter, the joy that once filled this land." A gasp swept through the crowd. An elderly woman near the front wiped her eyes with the edge of her wrapper. "This boy speaks with the heart of our ancestors," she whispered. Another elder stepped forward, resting heavily on his staff. "Let it be known," he said, voice cracking with emotion, "that one among us still carries the fire of courage." The villagers began to bow their heads, not in sorrow, but in respect, and somewhere in the distance, a wind moved through the trees, almost as if the forest had heard Ikenna's vow. The king gave a solemn nod, then instructed a group of palace guards to escort Ikenna as far as the edge of the village. They walked in silence, the weight of what lay ahead pressing heavily on every step. When they reached a safe distance near the forest entrance, the guards stopped. One of them stepped forward, placed a hand on Ikenna's shoulder, and said quietly, "This is where we leave you. May the gods walk with you." With a final glance back, Ikenna nodded, took a deep breath, and continued alone into the forest. The moment Ikenna stepped foot into the forest, everything changed. The light dimmed, not as if night had fallen, but as if the sun itself was unsure whether it should shine here. The air turned heavy, filled with a strange stillness. Even the insects stopped buzzing. It was clear that this forest was enchanted, holding mysteries and secrets as old as time itself. The forest path was narrow and tangled with roots, yet somehow it pulled Ikenna forward. Ikenna had walked a good distance into the heart of the forest when all of a sudden a sound pierced the air. a terrible, blood chilling scream, like 200 women wailing in agony. The air trembled with it, and the sound clawed through the silence, sharp enough to send shivers racing down a man's spine. Then came the wind. A sudden violent gust swept past him, fast as lightning, heavy as thunder. The trees bowed, the ground shook. When Ikenna looked up, a figure stood before him, tall, still, and cloaked in darkness. It had no clear shape, only the presence of something ancient and terrifying. But Ikenna didn't run. Where most would flee in terror, he stood still, calm and bold. Something had shifted in him. A quiet courage had taken hold. He stepped forward slightly and spoke, his voice steady. Spirit of the forest, I do not know your name, but I beg you, let me pass. I am not here for war. I am here to save my people. For a long, breathless moment, the dark figure said nothing. The forest around them seemed to stop breathing. Then, a voice emerged, not from the figure's mouth, but from everywhere at once, deep, layered, and echoing like 100 voices speaking in unison. Few have entered. All were driven by fear, pride, or glory. What makes you different, son of men? Ikenna swallowed hard, but didn't waver. I have nothing to prove. I seek no power. I came for my people, so they may live, so the children may laugh again, so our land may breathe. A wind stirred again, circling him. The spirit's shape shifted, taller, sharper, as if weighing his soul. Its voice returned, slower this time, older. And what if saving them means losing yourself? Ikenna's voice was quiet but firm. Then so be it. Let the forest take me, if that's the price. But let my people be free. A pause. Then the spirit stepped aside. Its shadow melted into the trees, and its voice faded like smoke in the wind. You may pass. The trees ahead parted slightly. The path continued.
And Ikenna, heart steady and eyes forward, walked into the unknown. Ikenna walked for what felt like hours. The deeper he went, the quieter the forest became. There were no birds, no breeze, no sound, only the soft crunch of his footsteps and the rising tension in his chest. Then he saw them. Two trees, ancient and wide, stood across from each other like twins. Their bark shimmered strangely, almost like glass. As he approached, he realized there were mirrors. Not ordinary reflections. They showed him two versions of himself. In the tree on the left, he saw himself as a broken man, alone. The village still in ruins. The people he had hoped to save, gone. He had failed. In the tree on the right, he saw a version of himself, triumphant, clothed in royal garments, praised by all. He had returned as a hero. The forest behind him burned, conquered. Then a whisper filled the air. Choose. He stepped back, confused. Choose what? He called out. The wind returned, brushing against his ear like breath. the man you are or the man you wish to be. Ikenna's chest tightened. The broken version made him ache. The heroic version tempted him. But then he remembered his purpose. He closed his eyes and stepped between the trees, not toward either reflection. As he passed through the narrow space, the mirrors shattered behind him without a sound. And suddenly, the forest changed again. The air grew warmer, softer, the light dimmed, but not with dread, with peace. Up ahead and through the trees, the forest opened once more. As Ikenna moved forward, before him lay a wide, glowing river. Its waters shimmered with colors not found in any world he knew. Deep blues, burning golds, glimmers of violet that shone like the stars in the sky. At the far bank, resting alone beside an old tree, sat a woman. She was dressed in black, her head bowed and her face hidden by her long black hair. She looked like a forgotten ghost. Then, on the opposite side of the river, something caught his eye. A shining golden goblet resting on a stone pedestal. It gleamed with an unnatural light, warm and inviting, as though calling out to him. As he stood turned between both sides, the woman raised her head slightly, but her face remained hidden. Her voice was soft, sorrowful, and trembling. "Please, help me," she said. "My ring. It fell into the river. It was all I had left." Ikenna looked into the water. The river no longer shimmered. It had turned clear, dark, and deep. He saw no ring. "If I lose it, I will be forgotten forever." She did not beg loudly. Her pain was quiet, ancient. Then the wind shifted. A deep echoing voice, the voice of the forest, rose around him. "Ikenna, go to the goblet. It may hold the key to saving your people. But if you do not claim it now, it will vanish forever." Ikenna turned toward the goblet. It was still there, glowing even brighter now. Glowing lights poured from it, spilling across the stones like the promise of hope. He turned back to the woman, still veiled, still sitting in silence. One step toward the goblet, and the voice repeated, "Choose." He looked again at the woman, not at her dress or her posture, but her voice, her sorrow, her stillness. She had not begged for riches. She had not called him by name. She simply asked for help. And in that moment, Ikenna understood. Without another word, he stepped into the river. The cold struck him like glass, wrapping around his chest, pulling at his legs. But he did not stop. He waded deeper, his eyes focused on the unseen ring at the bottom. The goblet's light began to dim behind him. Then his hand brushed something round and smooth. He reached down, grabbed it, and surfaced with a gasp. Ikenna walked to the shore and placed the ring before her. The moment she touched it, a bright, shining light glowed all around her, and the forest shook, not in anger, but in release. The woman lifted her head. Her face was now visible, and it was Nneka. Tears welled in her eyes. You chose me over everything. The river turned gold. The trees bent gently. Light flooded the clearing. The goblet vanished without a sound. And then the voice returned, softer now, warmer. At last, a heart pure enough to choose the forgotten over the promised. The curse is broken. Ikenna and Nneka stepped out of the forest, hand in hand. The sky above the village had darkened, not with a storm, but with the promise of rain. Thunder rumbled softly, as if the heavens were clearing their throats after years of silence. Then, as their feet touched the red earth of home, the first drops began to fall. Cool, steady, life-giving rain. Children ran out from their huts, arms stretched wide. Women raised their faces to the sky, weeping with joy. The land drank eagerly, as if waking from a long crow's sleep. Then someone shouted, "Look, by the forest path!" All eyes turned. Gasps filled the air. There, walking into the village, as if from a dream, was Ikenna, alive. And beside him, Nneka, the Nneka, the girl of legend, the one they had only known through whispers and warnings. She looked unchanged by time, yet carried the presence of someone who had walked beyond it. Some stepped back in awe, others dropped to their knees. But Ikenna raised a hand and said simply, "She is not a spirit, she is one of us." The village erupted in celebration. Drums were brought out, fires were lit, songs that hadn't been sung in decades returned to the wind. That night, joy lit the sky brighter than any moon. To this day, no one knows for certain what happened after. Some say Nneka remained in the village, her years as a spirit repaid in full. She lived quietly, gratefully, and in time married Ikenna. Together, they became the heartbeats of the village, keepers of peace and symbols of hope and courage. But others believe that on the seventh night, a light came down from the sky and gently took Nneka away, not as punishment, but as a blessing. Her soul had finally completed its journey. And if you listen closely on quiet nights, they say you can still hear the river's song, gentle, golden, flowing far beyond the forest, telling the story of a woman who once disappeared and a man brave enough to bring her back. To this day, people still tell the story.